Welcome back to the People of Penn State podcast. I'm Katie Farnham from the Alumni Association, and today I'm joined by Kassie Hilgert, a 1997 graduate of the Belisario College of Communications. Kassie is currently the president and CEO of ArtsQuest in Bethlehem, one of Pennsylvania's largest nonprofits. Kassie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to talk to you today. So let's start with your Penn State experience because it was a little bit non-traditional.
It is.
But it's definitely a good story. So please tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. My brother went to Penn State, right? And following in his footsteps, I kind of wanted to break out on my own, I thought. So I was interested in journalism at the time and applied and got into the Scripps School of Journalism out at Ohio University. And so I went there for the first year, but I got to tell you, it wasn't a fit. And I was longing for the memories I'd already made through my brother and our parents going to games up there. So I transferred in my sophomore year and transferred into temporary housing, which anybody who had that enjoyable experience was a bunch of bunks set up in a study hall. And I think I had 16 roommates my first semester there, but eventually settled in to just having one roommate. Then I graduated. Actually, between my junior and senior year, I had an internship that Penn State helped me get, and that was with a company called MedStar Television at the time. At the end of the summer, that internship went so well, they offered me a full-time job. So it was not a great job market at the time, so I jumped at any opportunity. It was a fabulous one, but it meant I had to finish that last year, which today sounds oddly familiar, remotely, which was not a thing back then. So it was a lot of work with the university to take credits in some other schools, transfer them, or get time off from work to go back up to take some classes in the summer. So I would have normally graduated in 93, but finishing that last year like that took me out to 1997. So it was quite the journey.
But you finished, and that's what matters.
That's what my parents said too. You finished.
So tell us about some of the experiences and organizations you were involved in when you were a student, because you were very involved.
Yeah, one of the things I loved about Penn State so much was you can do one thing for the time you're there, or you could do something every single semester. And I took the something different every single semester. So I got involved with the Daily Collegian and was an opinion writer there for a semester. I pledged and became a little sister at what was then the Phi Nu Delta fraternity. And then I became an RA up in Runkle in North Halls for about 2 years, I think, before I got that full-time job. So I really got the full experience of Penn State, and that's what I loved. I lived both off campus and on campus. I stayed up there for a summer to work. So I really felt that I got the full Penn State experience, which is one of the things I think makes Penn State so unique is you can literally reinvent yourself every semester, or you can dig deeper into the one thing that you love.
So tell us about that first year post-grad where you kind of landed that role that was started as an internship, became a full-time job. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was, it was a television production company. And they were looking to expand. They did a 22 series health program, and they worked with, at the time, managed care companies, what they called HMOs. And we would sign on with a managed care company to do this 22 show series. And as the company was growing, they didn't have a way to do any research into markets they wanted to go into. So let's say La Jolla, for instance, or Erie, Pennsylvania. And they didn't have anyone on staff. It was kind of a small boutique firm who could go in and do some research on the firm, on that area. So between my communications background, between some of the journalism, and there was this brand new little thing at the time called the internet, which no one knew how to use. And so I was literally on CompuServe and on LexisNexis creating a research department for this company. So our sales team could go in and know who the top 3 players were, who were the individuals at those organizations they should be reaching out to, what the competitive landscape looked like, and help that team put together the sales pitch. So it was really building a department from the ground up. And as I described it, it was jumping into the deep end, drinking from a fire hose. But I think all those Penn State experiences where I did something different each semester taught you curiosity, and it taught you adaptability and being able to learn things pretty quickly.
Those Penn State lessons, they last forever, right?
They were, but boy, it was a lot different when you had MapQuest versus Waze.
It's a very different landscape there.
Yes.
So you've worked in a lot of different industries. Tell us a little bit about your career journey that led you to where you are now.
Sure. So I was at MedStar Television for about 5 years, moved from assistant producer into heading up their communications, and then was recruited through healthcare with one of the larger physical rehabilitation networks in the area called Good Shepherd. And I worked over there during their first capital campaign, or during a capital campaign time. That is a nonprofit. They had about 1,200 employees, so a much larger organization than I'd been with. That was a special moment for me because it's where I got my first exposure to mission, which was a little different than just a for-profit. And I got to work with the son of the founder, Dr. Conrad Raker, who was formative, still coming to work in his late 80s, meeting patients and meeting with staff. And you got a camaraderie there that I wasn't used to, certainly in a small organization and certainly not in a for-profit. From there, I was fortunate to get recruited over to a company called Air Products, which is a Fortune 250 company, first starting by running the press releases and the communications for about half of their business lines. And then I got into crisis communications, which was a wealth of knowledge and experience there. And then I moved over into government relations and philanthropy. So my job there in the Lehigh Valley was to work with all the nonprofits and to use our foundation to help build the company's goodwill and their and meet their business objectives. And then that job went from just the Lehigh Valley and running that to North American sites. So I got to travel the country there and up into Canada doing that. It was during that time that there was a organization called ArtsQuest that I had gotten to know in my role working with the foundation at Air Products. And the founder, Jeff Parks, was working on this ridiculous project called Steel Stacks. It was just in its conceptual phases, where they wanted to take 10 acres of the nation's largest brownfield, that was Bethlehem Steel, and turn it into an arts and cultural district with the goal of helping to revitalize an urban core, a blighted area, support small businesses, increase tourism. And the massive size of the brownfield seemed like an unachievable goal. But Jeff and ArtsQuest were so wedded to this. And I kind of felt that nonprofit pull again. While I loved Air Products and I loved everything I was learning there, it didn't have sort of the mission. I know where I fit in when I went home at night. I know the difference I made. And so it took about 2 years in talking with Jeff Parks, who was the founder, until I made the jump back in 2008 here to ArtsQuest. And I took over from Jeff as the CEO in 2015.
So this is a very fun conversation for me because I am a Lehigh Valley native. So the whole ArtsQuest, Bethlehem Steel, all of that reminds me of home. But let's start with a little bit, very brief, the revitalization of Bethlehem and kind of how that has gone, what that has changed the landscape for the city, and then how ArtsQuest has kind of played into that.
Sure. There's two sides to Bethlehem. There's the historic Moravian district, which is also called the North Side. That's where you have a lot of Moravian settlements and ruins and buildings there. It actually just became a UNESCO World Heritage Site last year. And then you have the south side of Bethlehem, which is where Bethlehem Steel was. And Bethlehem Steel took up 1,800 acres in the city. When the plant shut down here in 1995, 20% of the city's tax base evaporated overnight. And over the course of the next 15 years, there was a lot of stop and starts with the ideas of what could happen down here to start to turn around such a blighted area. When Bethlehem Steel went out of business, it took a good part of the city down with it. Now, we have been operating as ArtsQuest since 1984. We started Music Fest, which is today the nation's largest free music festival, 10 days in August, 16 stages, attracts about 1.5 million people from 49 states and 7 countries. We have been doing that. We've been doing Chris Kindlemart, which runs 5 weekends, been twice named the top holiday market by Condé Nast Magazine. And then we opened this little thing called the Banana Factory, smack in the middle of the South Side, to try to offer the arts year round and see if we could offer that economic impact and that growth year round. The Banana Factory had 30 studio artists, a hot glass teaching studio, classrooms, galleries. And so we saw this incremental improvement. At the same time, it's important to note that the city was working hard to diversify its base. We have a number of industrial parks here that are very successful. We have actually our top sector right now is manufacturing. So you hear that going away in a lot of different parts of the country. That is not the case here in Bethlehem. So we literally, ArtsQuest, mirrored Steel Stacks or Bethlehem Steel's demise. That is when we came on to try to help reshape the image and the reputation of Bethlehem. not just us, of course. You have Lehigh University, you have Historic Bethlehem Moravian and Sites, you have the Bach Choir. There was a lot going on here, and I think we hit sort of a magic time back in 2011 when we opened up Steel Stacks, and then you saw some really major renovations and projects here, including the Wind Creek Casino, which was an $850 million development that dropped right into the South Side. So, you fast forward from 2011, we now have, I believe, the highest growing 18 to 35 segment in the state. Steel Stacks has won both the Rudy Bruner and the Urban Land Institute award, and those are the two benchmark awards for best practices when it comes to urban revitalization. And only two other cities in the country have won that, and that's Boston and San Francisco. It's not a sentence you would have thought Bethlehem would have been in 30 years ago or in 1995 when Bethlehem Steel went out of business. So we like to believe we're an anchor of the arts here. We're not the only ones, but I think you look at Lehigh University, you look at ArtsQuest, you look at Moravian University. We've got St. Luke's has got a presence here, LVHN. So we've seen some pretty dramatic growth over the last 15 or so years since Steel Stacks has been opened.
So tell us a little bit about what ArtsQuest is doing now and what kind of projects that you're able to do now that you have this expansion in Bethlehem.
Yeah, so we have the Steel Stacks campus, which includes the ArtsQuest Center and the Levitt Lawn. All told, we do 11 festivals a year. We do 4,000 camps, classes, and concerts a year, doing both performing arts and visual arts. Over 40% of all that programming is offered free. We do a lot of educational programming with the Bethlehem Area School District and 12 other school districts throughout the Lehigh Valley. We are currently in a $60 million capital campaign to build a brand new banana factory that I mentioned before. Those buildings were dilapidated when we bought them back in the day. We were run out of space. We had a waiting list for artists. So we are actually, the structural steel is up for the new creative factory powered by PPL. It'll have a 20% increase in artist studios, a much bigger hot glass studio, a new maker space. It will also have a year-round comedy club, a digital production lab, a recording studio. So it's going to be a great addition to our programming there. And then the second project we're working on is renovating actually a 150-year-old Bethlehem Steel building called the Turn and Grind that has been named the LVHN part of Jefferson Turn and Grind Shop. That is a project that will allow us to expand the footprint of our three biggest festivals, Oktoberfest, Music Fest, and Christkindlmarkt. It will allow us to host traveling art and scientific exhibits, and it will allow us also to offer some private events. And as a nonprofit, we spend a lot of time making sure we are diversifying our funding. I always tell my colleagues that, nonprofit doesn't mean no profit, and no profit, no mission. And one of the ways that you can help ensure your viability as a nonprofit is to diversify your funding like a regular for-profit would do. One of the ways we do that is private events. So think about galas, fundraising galas, think about corporate meetings, think about weddings, proms. That Turn and Grind shop will allow us to offer a lot more of those private events to help support that over 40% of programming that we offer free to the public. So two big projects that we have going on just about at the same time.
You're busy.
A little busy.
A lot to do.
Yes, we're already 365, but to add those two projects on top is certainly adding a different pace around it.
There's never a dull moment, right?
No.
So you mentioned Music Fest a few times. Let's talk a little bit for our listeners what Music Fest is and exactly what goes into it, because it is 10 days of constant music festival.
Yes.
So help our listeners understand it a little.
Yeah, it's mammoth. Music Fest starts typically the first Friday in August or thereabouts, and it runs then for the next 10 or 11 days. I say or 11 because sometimes we can get a headliner, but the festival has 16 stages. 15 are free. They are scattered throughout 50 acres of the city, both in the historic Moravian district and the Southside Arts District where Steel Stacks is. The reason for that is we want people circulating around Bethlehem. We put stages in the colonial industrial quarter. So you've got rock bands playing next to, 270-year-old archive or remnants, right, of what used to be there hundreds of years ago. And then we have the Wind Creek Steel Stage, which is our main stage. That is the only stage that is ticketed. And we have a headliner every night for 10 or 11 nights. And when I say headliners, I mean Megan Maroney, Nelly, Willie Nelson, Kesha, you name it. We've had every genre on there, but that is ticketed. It is a 6,500 seat venue. And it's got a dramatic backdrop of the blast furnaces. So the artist is literally playing out to the artist or to the audience. The audience is looking at the artist, and then the blast furnaces behind them. There are 500 performances over those 10 or 11 days on the 16 stages, and 490 of them are free. Even though they are free, though, every single artist gets paid. We get about 2,000 submissions each year for those free spots, so it's highly, highly competitive. These are artists that are coming in from around the world. So we've had them from Africa, we've had them from New Zealand, we've had them from Canada, and that means we have to house them, right? So we are using thousands of hotel rooms and dorm rooms. It takes about 2.5 weeks to set the festival up, about 10 or 11 days to run it, and then a full week to 10 days to tear it down. So it is more than a 5 or 6 week endeavor from ArtsQuest standpoint. But what's amazing about it is you have 5,000 people. We're only a full-time staff of 80. We have 5,000 people between seasonal, part-time, and volunteers who set up, run, and tear down the festival. We have 12 law enforcement agencies on site throughout the festival to make sure patrons are as safe as possible. It is truly an entire community coming together to build a city within the city for those 10 or 11 days. So it is a mammoth undertaking. And I think what, people will also tell you is there's an argument, is it a music festival or is it a food festival? Because the food at Music Fest is famous. It's also another way that we talk about supporting small businesses, because we have 60 food vendors that are at that festival. Like we have 150 crafters at Chris Kindlemart. These businesses rely on our programming to help augment their income. We will have some food vendors that can make 20% of their annual revenue in those 10 or 11 days. That's how many eyeballs and how much foot traffic we can get by some of their stands in just 10 or 11 days. So it is a mammoth undertaking.
And we should also note that people wait to see what the artwork will be for every year. They wait to see what the headlining performances are. So
that is a great point.
Following Music Fest on social media right now, you should be, because it's a good time.
You absolutely should. Each year we pick an artist to do the poster, and we only have one requirement of that artist, and that is you've been to Music Fest. After that, we leave the interpretation open to them. They can draw whatever, they can communicate through art, whether it's fiber or paint or photography, however they interpret the festival. We take that poster, and then, as you mentioned, we put it on what's called the Music Fest mug. This is a 24-ounce refillable mug. We sell about 30,000 mugs a year with that poster design. However, you can bring a mug from any year and get it refilled. So that becomes a bit of the badge of honor of who has the oldest mug on site. And you'll see swaps where people will say, oh, I don't have that in my collection. Can I buy that from you or swap from you? So you're right. It has a lot of traditions within the festival.
It's a good time, everybody. So save the date. Make sure you're going.
It is, and where I think I fell in love with that was Arts Fest. That was such a great time out there, and I enjoyed it so much and watched how State College, which can get pretty sleepy in the summer, roars back to life. Yep. And that was something I felt a lot of familiarity to when I first got introduced to ArtsQuest and Music Fest. And that was, I think, a connection I made from my Penn State days.
That is a good connection. Now that you bring it up, it makes a lot of sense. They're very similar.
Right.
So your leadership has gotten you a lot of recognition, a lot of different awards. Tell us a little bit about those and what that's meant to you.
Any award I get is a reflection of the team I work with and the volunteers and the sponsors. I mean, we have 3,000 members. We have 300 corporate partners. Any award I get is truly a reflection of everyone who works together to make this organization have the annual impact that it does. I hope in any small way, things that I learned at Penn State, whether it was the Daily Collegian as an RA, things outside of the classroom, I hope taught me the leadership skills that I hope I'm demonstrating today in transparency, autonomy, bringing people along so they understand your vision, and most importantly, where they can impact that vision and know that they can leave an impression on it. So, awards are great for me, but they're not personal. They are truly it is the people that I am lucky enough to work with. I remember my dad always taught me when I was younger, hire people that are smarter than you. And fortunately for me, that's a pretty easy bar to clear. But, I think it's important once you hire people for their skills, let them go. And I think I learned that the most as being an RA you had so much responsibility and autonomy, and the right manager of RAs let those RAs go, and you went to the manager when you had a problem, or your director. And that's what I hope I do here with the people that I work with. Hire the best people I can and then let them go. And the biggest role you have in leadership is to remove the obstacles that are keeping them from getting to their end goal line.
And we've talked a couple of times about how, your Penn State experiences have followed you throughout your career. But what advice would you have for our next generation of alumni, current students, young alumni, who are kind of ready to go out into the world and do amazing things?
Be curious. To me, the biggest thing is to be curious and raise your hand when somebody asks for someone to volunteer for a new project or to take something on. I can tell you that I have never had a job I've done before. I saw a job or a position that intrigued me, I was excited about, I wanted to learn more about it, and jumped in with both feet. And I think that was a strong skill that I got from my time at Penn State. Again, bouncing around to a different activity every semester when you're starting from zero knowledge base or very little knowledge base. There was a very encouraging environment in Penn State to sort of stretch your wings and see what you can do. I know it sounds very tactical, but I would tell anyone coming out of school or starting at a job, if that job is not fully remote by nature, show up, talk to people, make eye contact, ask questions. I think that is something that I'm certainly seeing these days. Is you see a separation between new graduates who come out and are ready to run and want to do things, and others that may not be as comfortable and want to work remotely. And that is wonderful. We all love the flexibility of it. But if you, it's hard to demonstrate curiosity remotely. And I think being in person is such a critical thing, to have those hallway conversations, walking from building to building conversations, unstructured dialogue between two people has done so much for my career. Certainly more so than dialing into a meeting.
That is great advice. So we like to wrap things up with a little lightning round of Penn State related questions. Are you ready?
Trivia. Okay. All right.
We believe in you.
Okay.
Your favorite creamery flavor?
Peachy Paterno.
Great choice. Your favorite spot on campus?
My favorite spot on campus. Wow. Favorite spot on campus. Oh my goodness. There are so many of them. What was my favorite spot on campus? Oh my God. Oh, good Lord. I studied all the time at Yale College Diner. I mean, that's where I lived, at Yale College Diner. So I was there all night long, coffee, studying. Absolutely.
Your favorite class and or professor while you were a student?
My favorite class, believe it or not, was the history of non-Western civilization. Not something I majored in, not something I followed afterwards. Was so fascinated by it. And I think it opened my eyes to a much broader world, very different cultures. I loved how it stretched my mind. I loved how much I realized I didn't know. And if I was just learning this little bit through this class, imagine how big the world really is. So that to me was one of my favorite classes.
It's like a college experience all in one little.
Totally.
You mentioned the diner, but do you have any other favorite local restaurants in State College that you make sure to stop by when you're in town?
Oh, the corner room I always went to. Now I have to say a lot of the coffee shops that were up on Beaver Avenue are not there anymore. So there were some favorites that were up there. Certainly the first, getting over there was big. Cafe 210 I loved. So that was another one. And then the memories get a little foggier the later the night goes on. So I think I know more of the breakfast and lunches places. Oh, what's the breakfast place right on College Avenue? Waffle
Shop.
The Waffle Shop was one of my favorites. My parents loved that. My brother loved that. That was another great place to go. They had awesome breakfast there.
It's a staple. You have to go when you're here.
Yeah, we didn't eat a lot the rest of the day, but it was a pretty good start, as we used to call it back in the day. It was a good base. It was a good base.
And last question, your most treasured piece of Penn State swag?
My most treasured piece of Penn State swag, I still have my Phi Mu Delta sweatshirt from when I rushed.
Oh, nice.
And it's plaid, so the Greek letters are plaid. That was very hip back then.
I mean, I think it's back. It's back.
Oh, it is back. Good. I mean, like it's the old gray Champion sweatshirt. It's,
super comfy, worn in.
Yeah, it's got a couple miles on it, but I still remember my big brother and big sister. My big brother I'm still in touch with on social media. So yeah, that is my favorite piece of Penn State swag. But anything truly, I am so annoying here at work with Penn State. We have the Penn State Nittany line on campus because Moravian wanted to put one down here, and I said, oh no, we're getting a lion here. We're not getting a hound. And there isn't a person here who does not know that I went to Penn State. Something happens to you between your sophomore and junior year that's it. You're in.
Sold.
Sold.
All right, Kassie. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a little bit about your journey. We love chatting with you.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate it. And go Lions.
Thank you to Kassie for joining us today. And to our listeners, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Special thanks to our guest relations coordinator, Abrielle Clark, and our graphic designer, Gabrielle Harris, for their work on this episode. To read more stories about our alumni, check out the Penn Stater magazine. And for more information on the Alumni Association, visit alumni.psu.edu. We are.